Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to explain the debate format to those of you in the audience so that you can understand exactly how things will proceed. We'll have opening comments from the candidates in 2-minute duration. At that point in time, we'll move on to a questioning period. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question we pose, and each candidate will be afforded a 1-minute rebuttal period at the end of their opponent's comments. After we move through those questions, we'll be asking a series of brief yes or no questions of the candidate, and then we'll be moving on to a couple of specific directed questions. Many of these questions have come from MLive readers, from responses on Facebook, and from other solicited members of the community. Lastly, the candidates will have the opportunity to possibly, if we're good on time, respond to a final question and then give their closing statements. We've determined the order in which the candidates will be making their responses and answering their questions by a pre-event coin toss. And so without further ado, we'd like to get started. By our coin toss, Steve will have the opportunity to make his opening statement first. So Steve, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the sponsors and the opportunity to come before the public. I'm a child of this place, Muskegon. In 56 years, I've seen the best of us and shed tears for seeing the worst of us. I've been blessed to be involved through the years with dedicated neighbors, rich and poor, of different race, political background, and lifestyle. I've been blessed to work hard, hand in hand with those who see themselves first and foremost as Muskegonites, friends and neighbors. For our hard work, we are a city moving forward. We are in a period of growth in our manufacturing sector and see increased investment in commercial and residential markets as well. The city is recognized as a leader in fiscal responsibility. The confidence our good governance engender leads to collaborative outreach to sister governments, educational entities, and positive relations with the business community. This results in cost savings and services provided, reductions in truancy, and safe, positive recreation for our kids, as well as job training and increased employment opportunities for our workforce. What we are involved in keeps a clear focus on the challenges of urban violence, unemployment, and poverty, and school dropouts. Our partnerships in social justice with educators, nonprofits, and faith-based business communities and neighborhood association keeps the continually positive momentum going. Muskegonites have continually recognized the needs in the community, and we have been stepping up for decades to address them. In 12 years on the Muskegon City Commission and as mayor for over the past year, I continually work daily in contact with elders and the young, survivors of tragedy, and just the average guy at the grocery store who appreciates our hard work and wants to be supportive or get involved. It is this sharing of time, talent, and treasure that will carry us to continued success regardless of the challenges, and I'm committed to lead on hand in hand with all people of good heart in recreating and continually making this a better community. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Aviade, your opening comments, please.
Recently, the Chronicle did an article with our new city manager who invited leaders of the city to take a tour with him. Offering new eyes to our current environment, he pointed out the beauty in the eyesores of our city. What was not listed were some invisible sores that only strong leadership can address. The gangs, the violence, closing of school buildings, and other issues that demand a certain type of leadership quality. Addressing these issues requires someone who has the skills, energy, and full-time availability to press forward. The sores of our city are not part-time problems. They need full-time attention, the quantity of attention that I can give. When I submitted my person as a candidate, I was submitting my skills in conflict resolution, leadership development, and my theoretical thoughts that give life to a vision and a strong future for our city. I come before the city with a resolve for direct engagement with those who participate in ill-advised behavior. I am submitting to you the type of leadership that has the time, determination, desire to meet with business leaders, struggling businesses, community organizations, students, gang members, and every organized entity in our city to re-energize and revisit the master plan for all citizens. My persistent effective leadership is evidenced in my academic accomplishments, my student evaluations, my consultation with businesses, and some results of my work are still evident in the city of Benton Harbor, where I started a street ministry in response to activities as we see at the Wood Street Market. On November 5th, you will have the opportunity to make a choice for a leadership that is vibrant, fluid, and visionary, a leadership that will take us from a good city to a great city. I submit that I believe I am your candidate.
Thank you, candidate. We'll now move into our questioning period, and I will turn the mic over to Dave Alexander.
We'll start with Abiati, and I will remind the audience that we had asked the candidates to refer to them prior to, and we were going with Abiati and with Steve. And welcome, candidates.
Thank you.
Abiati, how would you rezone the Sappy property?
I would rezone it with multiple purposes for tourism, restaurants, residential areas. I would rezone it that allows an extension to the downtown for walking trails and things of that nature. I think the rezoning has to be more than simply the reshaping of that property. It has to involve a movement, a change that invites the engagement and participation of not only our city, but people outside of our city. We have something that most cities do not have. We have one of the most beautiful waterfronts. You can get what we have by going to the Bahamas, but we have it right here. And so we need to rezone that area in a way that facilitates the use of our natural resources that we have in this city.
Steve, same question. How would you rezone the Sappy property?
I've always been a proponent, and the city's been moving in the direction, and has always held that it'll be a mixed-use type of development. It reflects a lot of what Abiati has said. I would foresee residential uses as well as recreational, commercial, and really developing it to tie into the lakeside neighborhood and the rest of the city. Also looking at opening up our watershed views so that we can celebrate our natural resources, and hopefully we can do an improved hookup with our bike trail.
Abiati, response?
I think we're on the same page on that one.
Steve, would you like to have anything else to say?
No.
Next question, David.
The employment situation in Muskegon is something that's very important and very dear to a lot of people in our community and a lot of readers of MLive. And interest in jobs, not just jobs that provide employment, but jobs that can support a family, is a high priority. What should City Hall do to improve family-supporting job development? And this question is to Steve first.
The city has had a magnificent relationship with the business community, and we see the results of that over the past year or more with, well, last night, almost $1 million of reinvestment again with one of our manufacturers, and that's on the heels of almost $60 million in reinvestment in existing manufacturers within our industrial park and other areas within the city. You know, that's going to result in 500 to 600 well-paying jobs that you support a family on. But we have to be aware, and the community has to be aware, that they're responsible as well as having to develop those skills, get through with your high school education, get out to Muskegon Community College and get a certification in one of the industrial arts or an associate's degree or beyond, because these jobs that are coming online provide an excellent wage, an excellent living, and we're going to see more of it. The gentleman from the firm that came before us last night is anticipating another $5 million, hopefully within the next year, for increase in his business, and over the next several years up to $20 million and 54 new jobs. So these are great watershed moments for us, especially when you look at people like ADAC Automotive, that in their second expansion They're keeping 100 jobs here in Muskegon that potentially could have went to Mexico. So jobs for American Muskegon and for their families.
Thank you, sir. Abiyati, the exact same question. What should City Hall do to improve family-supporting job development?
I think City Hall needs to be more engaging in the concept of smart zones, which invites universities, neighborhood associations, and businesses to brainstorm together about the job market. And you asked about jobs, so it's various things, but about the job market. So we're not patchworking the issue of employment. The schools are significant in terms of preparing students for the high-tech jobs, the long-term employments, for giving us the weather report of what to anticipate in the next 5 to 10 years, so that students can better prepare not only for the jobs, but well-paying jobs. And we need to participate in that. I think the city needs to agitate and encourage that, not only in the school system, but working with students and modeling by our participation in those avenues. Also, there are various programs where leaders from different municipalities around the United States get together and brainstorm matters like this. I think too often we limit our resources and our thinking capacity by only dealing within a silo environment as one municipality. So I think this concepts need to be engaged, not only in terms of smart zone, but the participation of others. What worked, what didn't work, and how do we infuse that in our environment to better prepare our students, our citizens, our community, by us taking the leadership. We often separate government and education. I think they need to have an intimate relationship in terms of employment preparation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abiyati. Steve, any additional comments?
No, I can agree with Abiyati, but I am happy to say that the city does have a great working relationship with the educational institutions. We participated in developing job training programs, in some pilot programs, and we are very engaged within the region within economic development. Our participation with entities and governmental units in Kent County, which we're hoping will position us in our economic development and the development of our port facilities.
Abiyati, any final thoughts?
We're on the same page. I think the only thing I would add is I would engage Windsor Deck as well in this process. They're doing an excellent job of addressing these issues from a regional perspective.
Thank you.
Next question, again from
Nice job.
an MLive reader, and obviously one on our minds and hearts in terms of urban violence and what we have seen in our city in past months and years. Abiyati, if elected, how will you address urban violence, and how does redevelopment and safety of city neighborhoods fit into your plan?
Ask that one more time because you asked a two-part question.
If you're elected, how will you address the issue of urban violence in Muskegon? And how does redevelopment and safety of city neighborhoods fit into your plan?
Thank you. Urban violence, which has been a real issue for our city, as many of us are aware of. I've already begun engaging that. On various times, I've been to the Wood Street Market. I've been to some of the parks where the shootings have occurred. I've been talking to some of the people in their attire, realizing that they participate in certain groups, and just getting to know them, because I think the solving of the issue of violence is not a matter of sicking the police on people. Somebody who was raised in New York City participating in gangs, that just stimulates gangs some more, because it's a challenge that, part of your manhood is living up to that challenge. The way to address violence is through relationships. And so I've already initiated talking to folk in the community, relating to them. They're starting to become familiar with my face. Now, it's still hands off, because who's this good-looking guy with a tie? Yeah, you were supposed to laugh on that. All right, loosen up, everybody. Thanks, my friend. Who's this good-looking guy with the tie? So I continue to engage that. Now, my hope is, as part of that engagement, is to eventually develop some inroads with people who engage in this ill-advised behavior. Now, in terms of, and I can go on, but she's about to hold that call. In terms of redevelopment of safety, one of the things I like to do, we have 14 neighborhood associations, I believe, or 13. About 15, okay, thank you. 15 neighborhood associations. What I like to do is break them down, the neighborhood associations, into block parties where working with blocks to not only watch their neighborhood, but engage people who come into the neighborhood. It's back to relationships. Without relationships, we're all going to fall.
Same question for Steve. If you're elected, how will you address the urban violence issue? And how does redevelopment and safety in our city neighborhoods fit into your plan?
Well, I'm going to start with the last one because I'm really a firm believer in the broken windows theory. If you have trashed out neighborhoods, you have a tendency to see breeding of undesirable or criminal behavior. We've lost some ground without a doubt during the downturn in our cutbacks at City Hall and code enforcement and our ability to keep property owners accountable for the condition of their properties. But over the past several months, we've been looking at ways that we can beef back up our code enforcement, get back out into the neighborhoods, because I firmly believe that a lot of the negative behavior we see is correlated with the cutback in our presence in the neighborhoods and making sure that these properties are taken care of, everything from weeds and tall grass to broken windows. We do a very good job. A lot of cities don't even have dangerous building ordinances, and we go in, we haul them down if we need to. We still get out to take care of problem properties on a complaint basis in most areas. But as far as the criminality itself, we'll continue to do the best job that we possibly can with good old-fashioned policing. But at the same time, we've been introducing a lot of new technologies with mapping and reporting. We have a lot of collaboration with other agencies, and especially our social justice agency, which is represented by law enforcement, the prosecutor's office, but most importantly, members of our faith community and other nonprofit organizations. And a big program run right out here is the Restorative Justice Program that helps family and troubled youth get a handle back on their lives, and again, dealing with individuals and helping them.
Abiyati, a response?
Yeah, I want to say agree, but I have a different perspective about social justice. Every city I've lived in that had urban violence had a social justice committee, and often it's a good committee. You have police, pastors, and different leaders meeting in the room, but meeting in the room is not addressing the problem. Until you go out there and deal with the young people or the gangs or whoever, you're just having a theoretical discussion. And so while I affirm those who are active in social justice, I'm not disagreeing, I affirm the activity, that, again, it cannot be void of that relationship.
Steve, a response?
Sure. I would respond that the members of our Social Justice Committee are very active and are out on the streets, and when things jump off, they get out, talk to the people, head off the problems. And again, our prosecutors come from a community prosecutor philosophy. They are out on the streets, they are at the neighborhood association meetings, and they are engaged with the individuals that may be acting out and their families, and finding alternatives to prosecution and helping lead a way to a more positive lifestyle.
Thank you, gentlemen. We live in a world of scarce resources, and obviously if we could put any amount of money or effort to bear on some of these problems, they'd be easy to solve. Sadly, we don't have that ability, which is why it's important for us to know a little bit about your fiscal and budgetary philosophy. Where would you generate revenue? Where would you spend money, and where would you cut? Steve, this question is to you first.
Okay. The municipality is reliant on our tax base, as most governmental units are. The days of federal infusions of cash through community block development grants and other such programs are probably coming to a close. It doesn't mean that we don't shake those bushes, and we do. We develop good relationships with our congressional members and keep ourselves front and center to see what resources can come to bear, any aid from Washington. We also have excellent relationships with our Lansing delegation, and we've seen some very good and positive partnerships with them, such as monies coming forward to deal with our harbor dredging and things like that. But I mean, ultimately, we have to continue to grow the economy because we are dependent on property taxes. We're dependent on our income tax within the city of Muskegon. So a successful economy gives us the resources that we can use. I'm a firm believer in continued use of our resources for our essential services first and foremost, which is public safety, our public works, our economic development, and we have to be very careful in other areas. We've had very, very nice programs in the past, but they were basically funded through CDBG funds, and sometimes we have to reinvent the wheel. And sometimes we have great success at it. We used to have a leisure services department that provided programming for children, but even with the limited amount of money now, we have 15 partners, and I think we're doing a better job in reaching more children and youth in the city and providing recreational program and safe environment.
Excellent. So what is the Abbiati budgetary philosophy? Where do you raise revenue? What do you cut, and what do you prioritize?
First of all, I believe that every city, every business, every system needs to have a master plan. That needs to dictate your finances and your budget. So I seldom hear in the public sector much about the master plan. So one thing I would do is revisit and energize the master plan and have that dictate the budget. Because part of the master plan requires the involvement of the community and the citizens to say what is a priority. Because people tend to be more open to giving to the things they value. And a direct example of that is the farmers market. That money didn't come from the government. A lot of that came from independent people and folk who were invested, business who were invested in that. So as we, I believe with my type of leadership of envisioning and encouraging and challenging people, I would bring to the table such types of options as the farmers market as a way for people to invest in the things that they desire to invest in. I think that's because if you don't have things people can invest in, then you have to depend on taxes. Now, we need taxes as a basis, but not taxes as a way of motivating increased giving. And so we need to focus on the things that people are desiring to do. Other thing is, back to the smart zone concept, work with the academic community to engage students through credit to write grants. There's a lot of different variables of getting finances out there, but we tend to think silo and don't tap into those other things. In terms of cutting, the cutting, again, will be based on the master plan priority. The things that are not a priority are the things that we would cut.
Steve, your response? All right. Any other commentary? Abbiati?
And I like what he said, too.
Very good.
Next question, gentlemen, from an MLive reader. What is the city's role and what policies would you suggest to downtown redevelopment? Abbiati, you're first on this one. Downtown redevelopment.
I believe the city's role in downtown, let me put more specifically, the mayor's role in downtown redevelopment is to work intimately with the Chamber of Commerce, work intimately with the businesses downtown that already exist to encourage them in the process of redevelopment of downtown. Part of that process has already been engaged with the farmers market. So I see the farmers market as a stimulus or impetus for encouraging new business and other businesses to participate in what we are doing downtown. I believe that downtown is, in any major city, downtown is the heart of the city, is the expression, is the personality of the city. And you cannot have a good personality without a good downtown. So I would focus on working not only with existing businesses, but new businesses as we play off the farmers market. In addition to that, I believe it's the mayor's role, it should be the mayor's role, not only to work with these businesses and entities, but to resource other governments around the United States, again, for best practices towards the redevelopment of downtown. But let me say this before I close. I don't, while I am so gung-ho and I believe in the redevelopment and development downtown, I don't want to do it at the exclusion of the neighborhoods. For example, as we move, while I was support of the farmers market going downtown, I also have spoken to various leaders in the community that we need to do something in the neighborhoods that we're taking that out of. You cannot take something out of a neighborhood to make something better without replacing it with something else. So I thought that, so I like to see that relationship with the two.
Steve, same question. What is the city's role and what policies would you suggest for continuing downtown redevelopment?
The city's had a major role right from the beginning after the mall closed. We kicked in almost $500,000 and became a partner with the Downtown Muskegon Development Corporation. We're ex officio now, which means I don't have a vote on the committee, but we ponied up to make sure that we cut those chains, opened up those parking lots, and brought back Western Avenue. We were also in the forefront and did the hard work and made the decision to go ahead and cut those streets and restore Western Avenue and its ancillaries when some people weren't really all that sure if we should move ahead that far, do things in stages. Well, we thought, well, nope, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it now. I do sit on, again, non-voting, on the Downtown Muskegon Development Corporation board. I meet monthly with the makeup, and I'm highly engaged there as well as at the Chamber of Commerce. We are a major funder of downtown Muskegon now. Started out as Muskegon Main Street. Hi, Dan. So a long working relationship with those folks, and it's a continual dialogue and a deep one. And I'm a kid that played on Western Avenue. You know, I know what Western Avenue was. I'm sure we're going to even have a better one. But I do agree with Abiade in that none of this occurs at the expense of the immediate neighborhoods. And we've done one of the first major steps in immediate neighborhood redevelopment by doing the turnback on Webster and on Muskegon. We're getting rid of that wall that used to separate the neighborhood from downtown, and we will integrate the two, and it'll be fantastic.
Abiade, a response?
A statement, not necessarily. I agree with what he's saying. I spoke to a couple of people in business who felt that some of our ordinances and rules were inhibitive of expression. If one person wanted to put up a flag, a beautifully designed flag that would have cost them some significant money, but they were told because of some dimensions that they couldn't put it up. So the other thing I would like to do, you can have a policy that's ineffective. So I'd like to revisit the policy and how and reshape the policy so it's more user-friendly to businesses. Because you can have policy without relationship is conflict.
Steve?
I agree we have to look at flexibility, but do remember that municipalities are bound by state uniform code, and we don't impose anything more restrictive than the state of Michigan. And where we do have to continually review and make sure we're being fair, we also have to realize that codes and the like were, put in effect for different reasons, and a lot of it is for public safety, right-of-way issues and whatnot. But yes, we need to be open and flexible.
Thank you. Since the earliest times here in Muskegon, since the lumber years, our waterfront has been a significant portion of the city's economic and personal identity. Steve, how important is waterfront and port development to this city's future?
We're going to be the Port of Michigan again. It's not going to be an old tag on an old, patch, the port city. I really feel that we're moving in the direction of becoming the port city of Michigan. Our relationship, again, in a new consortium, including Kent County, the city of Grand Rapids, Wyoming, the development group, The Right Place, along with the county of Muskegon, the city of Muskegon, and Muskegon Area First, our economic development organization, are engaged in a regional collaborative, which will hopefully, and I don't doubt, will really build on the fact that we've got the port, we've got the rail spurs, and we have the highway access that is very amenable for port facility development on the east end of the lake, as well as manufacturing facilities. And there's a lot of excitement being engendered throughout the region. And that can go hand in hand with our residential and recreational development from downtown to Pere Marquette. I mean, face it, our port is second to none within the Great Lakes watershed. And I see nothing but great days ahead for both uses.
Abiyade, same question to you, good sir. How important is waterfront and port development to our city's future?
Very, very all capital letters important. In one of my presentations, I identified us as people of the water. We have, in terms of image and beauty and resources, one of the best locations in the United States, right here in Muskegon. I think it's significant enough to shape our identity as a municipality. An identity that shapes, again, our budget, that shapes our decisions, that shapes our relationships, that shapes our master plan and our relationships and our focus together. I think not only for us, but as Muskegon being the largest populated municipality in the county, we have a responsibility to model, to set the pace, to set the stage. We have opportunity by using the resources we have that other people do not have. Also, not only other municipalities in the county, but we need to be a model for the state. And I wouldn't stop there. I would say for the United States. We have a diamond that we have not played well. And I believe that our diamond is found in our water. The other thing I think we could do, or we should do, is piggyback off of other programs that lend itself to the wake of what we'd like to do. For example, the state anticipates spending $25 million in the Pure Water campaign. We should be riding that. They're putting the money out there. All we have to do is piggyback off that. We have the resources and we have the location to lift those things up, to identify us and to bring others to us. Thank you. And
Thank
I like
you.
what he said.
Steve, any response?
No, I agree with Abiyade, and I am very happy that we have been piggybacking, well, the county, with the Pure Michigan campaign, and that helps focus on us. He's right. It's a beautiful diamond, and we're blessed with the Annis Water Research Center. And the research going on there. So I think it's certainly in the forefront, and we will continue to steward this resource to the benefit of all our people.
Abbiati, final thoughts?
Nice job.
The BC Cobb plant, it's expected to close, be mothballed in 2016. For Abbiati, first on this question, that is a negative for our community. It is our largest tax base, not only for the city, but for the county, and there are very meaningful jobs out there. What's City Hall's role in turning this lemon into lemonade?
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'm appreciative that BC Cobb has given an extension to making a final decision. I have to answer that question for outside. I have asked myself, asked others, could I be invited to the table to help brainstorm different options to this? Hopefully they let you in there. But I think, one, that it is a significant part of our tax base. And so when we brainstorm what to do with that area, we need to do it, one, in view of the master plan. I think part of our silo thinking, we take things in isolation. What if, when we talk with the BC Cobb plant, first of all, what is our master plan and how does that fit in any reorientation or redefinition or reuse of that property as opposed to just running in there and trying to maintain? Maintain is not healthy. We need to have a vision for direction, and that needs to be influenced by our master plan. There needs to be a plan A, B, and C now, not after they close, not in 2016. That process needs to be going on now. If I were mayor, I would be sitting in on that process, keeping the community informed, asking community to participate in those type of decisions. I think City Hall has a very significant, our city has a very significant reason to be at the table because the impact, not only in terms of taxes and jobs, but in terms of an eyesore if it's just closed down in terms, but you know, when that, if that closed down, I do see that as an opportunity to engage the community now for different options for use of that facility.
Steve, same question. It's a negative to lose the tax base, the jobs. What is City Hall's role in turning that lemon into lemonade?
We're on it. We've been dealing with the reality over several years. We have already moved to rezone a good portion of that east end of the lake for manufacturing and port development. We've been engaging Consumers Energy along with other members of the Port Consortium to begin planning. I do like the point of bringing in the community, but at this point, remember, we're dealing with private property, and private property owners are only so willing at any given point to be engaged at the level that they're willing to at this point. But we do have a good relationship with Consumers Energy. They've been very forthcoming through the years, and our administration and our planning department have certainly been doing a bang-up job with keeping those lines of communication going and planning for the future. But I think, at this juncture, I think part of the vision really would be they have a beautiful deep water port there, and it was recently redeveloped, tens of millions of dollars. So we have a ready-made slip there, and there's property there that could potentially be conducive to other uses. But we'll have to see how this plays out. Again, it's in private hands, it is private enterprise, but we are engaged and we are communicating.
Response, Abbiati?
I want to address the issue of rezoning. Again, I want to go back to the master plan. Whatever we do should involve a master plan because the Sappi plant is not an isolated issue. It's the whole eastern port over there. You have the Sappi plant, you have the Fisherman Landing, you have Verplank, and so all that would be encompassed in dealing with this issue from the perspective of a master plan. Now, The concept of rezoning, I think that's great. I fully support rezoning the east side of the lake for industrial use, and then the other side of the lake, Sappy Plan, and other sides of the lake for rezoning for multi-purposes. So we need to look at the big picture, not just that in isolation, and I support the concept of rezoning.
Steve, final?
Right. I will say that the rezoning on that end of the lake at the eastern end to port facility and manufacturing does fit the bill for our master plan, exactly.
Excellent. You've both talked about relationships in the community, and you both talked about ways in which City Hall can assist the community in a variety of ways. Muskegon is an incredibly diverse community, and that's why occasionally we have to ask hard questions. The question I have to ask you, and Steve, you get this one first, is there a racial divide in Muskegon? And if so, what can City Hall do to bring the community together? If not, why or how do you deal with the people who believe that there is one and that it's a roadblock?
There's no doubt in my mind that, here and throughout the United States, race plays issue. Different groups, for whatever reason, bad learning, are taught to distrust or dislike, and it's a horrible shame. At City Hall, we won't stand for racial divide in our operations, in our relationships. Abiyadi's brought up modeling. It's our philosophy. We've done a great job at City Hall in, I think, mirroring the community at the highest levels of our administration. If you figure that over 40%, almost 50% of our division department heads don't look like me. But even if there is, and again, and I'm sure there always will be some negative element of race in some people's minds. There's always a bigot in the barrel someplace. But we have to continue to reach out and be Muskegonites and see each other as friends, as neighbors, regardless. And I'm just lucky that I grew up in a family, in a neighborhood that, difference was celebrated, maybe, but you didn't give it much thought. You didn't give it much thought at school, even in an 8-room elementary school at St. Jean's, where even in the 1960s, not everybody looked like me. And some of our suburban friends may have looked a little askance at us, but we had friends stay over that didn't look like me.
They didn't look as good as you.
But it's but we have to voice how unacceptable any semblance of racism or negativism is, and live that way.
Thank you, Steve. Abiyadi, same question to you. Is there a racial divide in Muskegon? If so, what can City Hall do to bring the community together? And if not, how do you deal with people who think that it is an issue?
I think there is a racial divide. It's evidence in the city of the Heights. In Muskegon, you look at the neighborhoods, they tend to be predominantly one race over the other race. So, I mean, that's obvious. I remember one time sitting in the commission meeting and some business came forward looking for some type of tax break, and the question was asked by Commissioner Hood about their racial composition. They had 49 employees and only one was ethnic minority, and they went through. I thought that was a shame. I thought it was a shame. In a city that it's 30% ethnic minority or African American, to not, for business to come here and not have that sensitivity, I think is a crying shame. I also, I mean, I hate saying it, I have had a couple of European American folk who were supportive of me were told by people in the community they can't vote, they're not voting for that N. So it's out there. Now, I think the City Hall has a responsibility to model what is important to us. In racial, for me, racial inclusiveness is important. I'm in an interracial marriage. I've started organizations like BIF, Biracial, Interracial Family and Friends. I'd like to see some type of model that people coming to the city recognize that this is a value for us. So if you're coming here for a tax abatement or looking for some help, we don't mind, but you need to understand these are values that we hold up beginning at City Hall. I think City Hall is the heart of the city, and so we need to model it, and that's something that's very endearing, and it's a very important issue for me. Working with people of different races, of different backgrounds, of different faiths, of different practices, bringing people together, I think that's the mark of excellent leadership.
Steve, your response?
I think we really move towards that. And again, it's because you look at the makeup of our decision makers within our administration. You know, on the topic of the tax abatement, you know, I understand it may not look good, 49-1, but we had last night we had an explanation that the company's gone through 500 applications and they could not find the qualified individuals of any race. It's very, very hard. But when people do come before us for those tax abatements, be mindful, they must have an affirmative action plan, and they must work with our affirmative action department. So we ride herd on that, and nobody gets off.
Abiade, final thoughts?
Yeah, just from personal experience, I remember when I received my bachelor's degree, I spent 6 months trying to find a job. I had friends who went to school with me, found jobs within 2 or 3 weeks, European American friends. There's a divide out there that we're not addressing, and it's a real issue. And I always struggle when I hear folks say, well, I can't find any ethnic minorities. I went to college. My graduate studies was in Atlanta. It's called African American Mecca because there's 6 colleges, 5 colleges, 1 graduate school. And I'm wondering, you know, if someone said that to me, let's go to Atlanta. We can resolve this issue. There are a lot of qualified people. I don't know where you're looking. Also, the qualifications a lot of times deals with personality. You can have somebody very qualified, but the research in sociology shows the more different people are to us, the harder it is to connect to them. So there are other factors included in this problem of finding ethnic minorities.
Final question in this round.
There's another round?
There will be a couple more rounds for you, sir. Abiade first on this question. When I first came to town in 1981, Marguerite Holcomb was providing leadership in the city. And ever since, there has been a woman on the city commission. That will not be the case after your guys' election and when the new group takes office January 1st. Is that an issue with you? And if so, how do you respond? Abiade.
I'm pausing because that issue angers me. I do not know how in the city of Muskegon we are in the place in January 1st with not one female sitting on the commission. If I could step down and let a female run against my friend, I would do it. That's how strongly I feel about inclusion. That does not make any, that really irritates me. And I'm not apologizing. That just irritates me. I was asked what would I have done had I been commissioner or mayor. I would have been advocating that we give serious consideration to a female candidate to avoid what has just happened. I know that is not the practice. The commissioners and mayors, we're supposed to all be neutral. I'm not about neutral when it comes to advancing and progressive thinking. That should have been voiced. That's just not acceptable. That should have been voiced, and I will voice that whether I'm mayor or not. One of my commitments is to make sure that this does not happen again. And I don't mind telling you, I am very disturbed about this issue.
Steve, same question. Is the fact that there will be no women on the city commission starting in January an issue for this city? And how would you respond, or will respond?
We will certainly miss the input of women, without a doubt. We will miss that. We'll become too homogeneous as far as gender. But in speaking with individuals, they're satisfied that as long as an individual is an individual, a person of good heart, and is sincere in their dedication to work for the city, that we can work through this. And that's from some, what I would consider rather progressive, individuals. But for them, it was more of, is there an individual of good heart? What we need to do is continue to reach out in the community and encourage the participation of women to come forward, to become involved, and run for city government. We only had one woman candidate, and the voter spoke. But I will say the lack of women on the commission will be missed, and their input, and not just because of the gender. There's a difference in our thought processes. There's a difference in how each of us responds to our represented, citizens and the needs of our community. But we just have to work hard at doing the job as best can and encourage that continued participation and get women to step up and take the risk and run for government.
Abiyadi, a response?
I'd just like to expand on my earlier comments. The significance of women participation is in the diversity of process, in the diversity of thinking, of the dynamics of approaching issues from different perspectives. That is lost. Now, what I would do if I were mayor to compensate that is, one of the things I'm considering is having a women's council, inviting women leaders in the community and the different organizations within the community to sit down and talk to make sure that their ideas are represented intimately as a result of engaging a relationship together. I would also prioritize assigning women to the various committees and commissions within the government to make sure that that voice is echoed well in the movement of our city.
Steve, final word?
Luckily, women are well represented in our different citizen boards and also within the city administration. So it's not a total loss.
Here's the next round.
Oh, another round.
We'll start with Steve on this. And these are simple yes/no questions. We're going to go through sort of a little lightning round here. So I'm going to ask the question. I'll ask three. David will ask three, and it's just a simple yes or no, and we'll start with Steve. Should we reform our zoning laws to increase urban farming?
Oh, come on. That's not a yes or no, David.
Yes, it is, sir.
I'm supporting him.
Yes.
Abiyadi.
Yes.
Abiyadi, from an MLive reader, are you open to the relocation of Fisherman's Landing for port development? Open to that prospect?
I'm open to it.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve, do you support commercial development of Pierre Marquette Park?
Yes.
Yes.
David?
Back to me.
Hold on a second. We're showing them, aren't we?
Back to me. Abiyade, do you support a downtown casino?
Ouch.
The voters had to, gentlemen, as you know,
Oh,
the
this
voters
is-
had to say yes or no on that
Are we
question.
still in yes and no? on
Yes,
this?
we are.
Yes and no.
Okay. Do I have 2 minutes?
No?
Oh, man. Yes, with the people, because I believe the people would support that.
Steve.
Yes.
To Steve now. Should the city encourage creation of a new summer music festival?
Encourage.
Yes.
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 And then to Abiade first. With the agreement on current long-term water contracts with many neighboring communities, should Muskegon continue to pursue consolidation of water plant operations with Muskegon Heights? Yes or no?
Who's that to first?
To Abiade first.
You want to go first? No. Yes.
Yes.
And a final in this round from a Facebook poster. In 1 or 2 words, what's the most pressing issue, not yes or no, but give me an issue, the most pressing one in your mind for the city of Muskegon? Steve?
Most pressing
Most
issue?
pressing issue. One.
The one.
Give me one.
Give you
That
one.
is, that's the most pressing in your mind.
Economic development.
Abiade?
Economic development. I was going to say employment, same thing.
Okay, now we're going to move on to a couple of very specific questions. You each get your own question this time, and this is having to do a little bit with your background and biographies. So I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Abiade. You've lived in Muskegon for 4 years. You've been running for mayor for about 2 years. Why do you want to start out as mayor? And why are you running so hard for a position that in a community with the city manager can be seen primarily as a figurehead?
I like our structure because the authority of the mayor is in the influence, not the authority. So I like the dynamics of that type of relationship. Hard is a relative term. I don't see myself as running hard. I'm a high-energy person. Matter of fact, my congregation is happy I don't drink coffee. I rise at 4 o'clock each morning, go to the Y, work out, so I'm just a high-energy person. Ask the question to me. Want to make sure I'm answering the question. Come back to me one more time.
Sure. You've lived in Muskegon for 4
4
years. You've
years.
been running for mayor for 2.
Yes.
What do you want to start out as mayor, and why are you running so for this position, which in a system with the city manager can be seen as a figurehead?
Why am I running for the position, right?
Yes.
Yes. I'm running for the position because I believe, as I said before, Muskegon is a diamond in the rough. And in order to get to the diamond, you need certain skills to get through the rough. The rough is the violence, the swords, and all those other things are the silo mentality among leaders. I believe as a mayor, I can't require those people to come to the table. I can invite them. And I'd like to use the influence of the office to invite people to the table to address issues of inclusiveness, to address economic development, to address moving our city in the future, the rezoning of the waterfront. I believe that I not only have the vision to help engage what is already existing, but the time, personality, and the skills to help bring people to the table so that we may not only talk about it, say, you can talk about things and not produce, but I have the tenacity to make sure that our conversation is manifested in action.
A question for Steve. You've been involved in this city government for about a dozen years. Some of the critics would say that not much has really happened during that time. And I guess as you go into your own elected term of office as mayor, if elected, how would your style or the way that you would approach that office be different from past mayors and past leaders in our community?
I may be seen as low-keyed, but I want to get it done. And I also use my influence in the form of my ability to develop positive relationships, facilitate those, but I know when to step back and let the pros at City Hall close the deal. And for those individuals that believe not much has gone on, then I don't know where they've been living. like I say, I could reiterate the recent events and the reinvestment in manufacturing, but I mean, we were successful in seeing developments occur in the downtown area that were in the pipeline, even during the economic downturn. I mean, when you really look at it, we've gone at lightning speed. Now, people like to see it go faster. They like to see, 10-story buildings going up. But I think about $200 million in reinvestment in the downtown area is a pretty darn good thing. I really think that putting in bike trails during my 12 years is a really good thing. I think being able to take action and see commercial development at Perry Marquette is a really good thing. I really think that being able to sustain community policing and even during the downturn, try to keep up as best possible with our lacking code enforcement, everything is a good thing. And I think our continued outreach and our partnership with neighborhood associations and other nonprofits, and going back with, I think, an excellent relationship with the business community is a really good thing. We've done tons.
We will go on to the next portion of this, and we'll then come to our closing. But two questions we will have asked by the candidate of their opponent, and we will start with Steve asking a question of Abiyadi.
I really haven't thought of one. Other than,
Why it looks so good?
well, I always want to know why he looks so good. But no, I really don't have what I would consider what they would think a substantive question. But one thing I'd ask after it's said and done, I think the four of us should go out and have dinner.
I like that.
All right.
And then, Abiyadi, you have the opportunity to ask a question of Steve.
I have constructed a question, but I'm not comfortable asking it with him not asking a question.
Fair
With
enough.
that, closing.
Yeah, that brings us to the closing comments for the two of you. And again, as determined by the coin toss earlier, Steve, you'll have the first opportunity to give your closing comments.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. And I want to thank everybody here and not here for the overwhelming support that I've received during my 12 years at City Hall and during this campaign. It's extremely humbling. But I don't have an option of being humble, especially because the two women over there, their mom, she kicked my butt, so would my wife. But thank you. And there's so many of you that I've worked with through the years on many good things, in different volunteer outreach in the community and the like. I'm grateful to be a partner and a neighbor with all of you. I really do. I love you all.
Abiyadi, your closing comments, please.
On November 5th, you will have the opportunity to make a decision between being on cruise or moving forward at fast speed. I think that you can make the obvious choice when you go into the polls. I'd just like to close with a thought. One of my friends asked me the other day, I was complimenting the new city manager, energetic, out there, visionary, and 30, oh, I had 1 minute. Oh, and so my friend said, what kind of team would y'all make together? Would y'all be too much for the city? I said, no, it depends. If you want just a good team, and you go with what you have. If you want a better team, you got to bring in some new energy there. Ooh, man. I said, with me and the city manager, I can guarantee you this place won't be the same in 4 years. They may want to say, hey, Steve, come back.
And I drink coffee.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Abiyati, for attending here tonight, for sharing your perspectives with the community. We'd like to thank all of you in attendance here this evening and those of you who will be watching on MCC's TV 98. We'd like to thank Muskegon Community College and President Dale Nesberry. We'd like to thank MLive, along with Peg West and Dave Alexander and Paula Holmes-Greeley for helping put this event together. Muskegon's voters will have a choice on November 5th as to which one of these two gentlemen will be sitting in the mayoral office for the next several years. We appreciate all of your participation in the democratic process, encourage all of you to vote on November 5th, and thank you again for attending or watching this 2013 Muskegon mayoral debate.
Hey, nice job. You know, I like this. I didn't want to give anything.